Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, support, and inspiration you need on your path to parenthood. Whether you're just starting out, exploring your options, or looking for solidarity and advice, we are here for you. Let's embark on this journey together and turn uncertainty into empowerment and make friends with fertility. Let's get started. Hello, my beautiful friends. Today I spoke with Bambi Corso-Steinmeyer. She is the author of the book DreamTracking, Track Your Dreams and Transform Your Life. Her passion and exploration of dreams span more than 40 years, and she has journaled over 8,000 of her own dreams. Working with her dreams for so many years has given her tremendous insight into every aspect of her life: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Knowing the immense guidance and wisdom available through DreamWork, she is committed to teaching others how to work with understanding their dreams for personal transformation and growth. By bringing conscious awareness to their dreams, people can live more purposeful and authentic lives. She serves on the Southern California Regional Committee of the International Association for Study of Dreams. Was a review editor for the Dream Network Journal for 9 years and is certified as a law of attraction coach. She is an amazing person, and we had a really fun time talking about dreams. I just kind of threw at her lots of different random questions. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey everyone, welcome back. I am really looking forward to our conversation today with Bambi. She is a dream expert. Welcome, Bambi.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here with you today, Elizabeth.
Yes, I was just starting to get into part of this conversation. I'm like, wait, let's record first, because what has been coming up recently, and I don't really believe in coincidences, but clients have been telling me about their dreams so often. In fact, yesterday I wrote down the one because of course I knew this recording was coming. And she was saying, I had a dream that my uterus fell out of my body and my baby was in my uterus still, and it came out and it was a big mess. Except I have people telling me dreams like that a lot. Interestingly enough, the theme is generally not a pleasant one around their babies and whatnot, which is interesting because people who have come to me have been trying for a long time to get pregnant, and it's something that they're nervous about for the most part. Either they've had a loss or they've heard of somebody that's had one or something. I always say you can't undo or unread what you've seen. Unfortunately, because they're in this online community, they see and hear more than they probably should. But here we go, jumping right into it. And what are dreams telling us about our lives, and how do we even start to interpret that? I'll let you start because I feel like there's so much that I want.
Oh, and it's a big subject, Elizabeth. I believe that our bodies are speaking to us through dreams, but that dreams come to us on behalf of healing and wholeness at all times. And not just physically, also spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. So our dreams are always coming with some kind of information for us. And when we start paying attention, the information that we can gather from dreams about ourselves, our lives, and our physical form is extraordinary. You have lots of stories about dreams in that relate to the body, but also there's a symbolic piece, which I would be curious for the people who have sent in some dreams to you recently, that could also be at play. So we could talk about that too.
The other aspect that I find interesting is having little children in my home now. My oldest is 7, a
Oh.
5, and a 4-year-old. And for a while, I always ask them, did you have any good dreams? And of course, I always assume that it's going to be good. So I'm trying to implant that is something that we have. But recently, my 7-year-old has been open to say, Mommy, I had a good dream last night and this is what happened, and
Oh.
which is interesting. So what age does the consciousness around dreams start to happen? When they see a baby moving or something, we're like, oh, they're having a dream. Are they really? Who do we really know that? Do you tell us a little bit about that too, of what you know with children coming into their awareness of dreams?
Yes, I've known so many people I know people, Elizabeth, who started remembering their dreams at like age 4. So
Wow.
I believe that the dreaming process probably starts really early on, though I am no expert in that. But I even remember dreams from my own childhood and things that followed me through. So I believe that the dreaming function is something that everybody is obviously born with, everybody on the dreams. And I think that when consciousness around them starts showing up, and you as a mother encouraging your children, hey, pay attention to your dreams, there might be something really fun there,
Right.
is part of that process of bringing awareness that dreams are pretty cool and that there is a lot we can learn from them. But at that age, I would never work with a dream with a child as like I would with an
Sure.
adult. I would
Sure.
play with it. I'd make it fun. I'd make it breakfast conversation. Oh my gosh, you dreamt about that? Well, I dreamt about this.
Right.
Maybe get them artistically involved. Oh, well, why don't you draw the horse in your dream? And I would
Right.
just be encouraging of it that way until much later in life when we can actually have the facilities to be doing deeper work with the dreams.
Right. So with my kids, my husband has always said since I've known him that he has dream powers, he calls it, that he has the
Ooh.
ability to go to bed and say, this is what I'm going to dream of. And then he'll dream about that. And so I always joke with well, not joke with the boys, but I say, if daddy can do it, you can do it. So go to bed and have good dreams. Use your dream powers just like daddy does. And
Love
this,
that.
of course, they don't really quite understand what that means.
Yeah.
But is that really a thing that people have the ability to do to the extent that
Mm.
Dave
Ah,
proclaims that he does?
that is so fun. I think there's two things. One of them is that there are people who do lucid dreaming who do have more control of their dreams. That is not something I've ever been good at. There are people
Me
who just
either.
they're born with it, right?
Mhm.
And then there's something called dream incubation, where you can actually, I suppose you could also ask for specific images, which I've done, but generally it's more around a question. Or let's just say, if it was an infertility issue, you could ask a question at night and say, give me some information, body, spirit, whatever it is, that I can use to help inform me as to maybe something that I can be doing that might help this along. So you
Right.
can incubate, you can ask questions because there are millions of things that have been answered in dreams. Everything from chemistry, mathematical equations, books have been written, films, music. There is an unlimited and untapped resource in our dream awareness that we can bring into the waking life, which is a whole nother thing too. But
And how, so if somebody's doing that to ask a question that may be an incubation, but someone like me who doesn't always remember their dreams, in fact, more often than not, I don't remember dreams when I wake up. It's always like a big deal when I do. Oh my gosh, I had a dream and I remember it. So exciting.
yes,
How do you get yourself to have that awareness and that remembering when
yeah.
you awake?
Well, there's a couple of things. So, developing dream recall, of course, is the first step. And generally, it seems like the dreams that people remember are the nightmares because they're so
Mhm.
emotionally charged. But we
Right.
wake up and it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to forget this.
Right.
But in order to develop dream recall, there's really simple things. I have a free ebook on my website that gives 10 tips for doing this. But
Great. I
simple stuff
can.
that you could do is you just start repeating to yourself as you're falling asleep at night, I will remember my dreams. And you keep an open notebook next to your bed with a pen and a flashlight. And then anytime you remember anything, you write it down. So you might just remember a feeling, or you might remember just, oh, I saw a dog crossing the street or a tree. It doesn't matter that you don't have a big dream to begin with because you're developing what I call the dream memory muscle. And it's just like weights, right? Start small, start with a little bit of weight, and then you're going to build on that because you're going to be training your mind to remember the dreams more. And even the greatest dreamers that I know, and I'm involved in a huge dream community, they don't remember their dreams every night. A lot of them don't. I'm sure some of them do, but you
Right.
can definitely train yourself to recall them. And the second part of that that really helps a lot is the actual journaling of the dream. Because once you actually take the time to write down a dream, you have now got your mind and your body engaged in remembering. So it really helps you with your dream recall to start writing down your dreams, no matter what they are.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. And how did you get into this? Let's go back.
So I started being really fascinated with dreams at a very young age. I was 15, actually, when I consciously remember being completely intrigued. I had had a dream. I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much more to dreams than I'm aware of. I consciously
Mm.
acknowledged that even as a teenager. And what was interesting is that the dream pointed out to me two things in my life, in my waking life, that I never understood. One of them was why I was so terrified of fire, and then this other piece. And when I had the dream, it made sense. And whether the dream was actually accurate for some other part of my life, or I know people who say they dream of past lives also, who
Right.
knows, right? I started realizing that there was a lot of information there. So that started my journey. And
Okay.
I started studying and reading everything that I could get my hands on ever since then, and got certified and ultimately wrote my own book and came up with my own method for DreamWork. So I've been doing it a long time. And I feel like I'm out of balance if I'm not doing my dream work, which is a strange thing to say. But when you really get into remembering your dreams and using it as one of your tools in life, you feel like you can't live without it.
Right. I would imagine so that it's
Yeah.
part of you
Yeah.
now. So, are there such things as recurring dreams as far as them having a specific meaning, right? I know all of us have
Yeah.
looked up something at some point of whether it's falling. I've heard people talk about the teeth falling out or random things that can seem to be consistent with recurring dreams.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, it's funny because you bring up, I was just giving a workshop on Sunday and I was talking about the most common dream themes, and teeth falling out is one of them. But though there are many, flying is one, falling is one, and there's plenty of others. But recurring, so there's kind of two different things going on. A
Okay.
recurring dream would be, now, if you did have the exact same dream and you kept looking in the mirror and your teeth kept falling out and you had the same dream over and over, I would call that one a recurring dream, versus repeating imagery. So maybe I have 5 dreams over 5 months of being someplace and my teeth are falling out. So they're a little bit
Hmm.
different, but you can
Okay.
still work with them very much the same. When it comes
Okay.
to recurring dreams, I think the best piece of advice that I have is look at when it began. Because a lot of the time, a recurring dream, where you have almost the identical dream and it keeps happening, has a starting point. And I remember reading in a book that there was this man who had, I don't know, 10, 15 years of a recurring dream. And when he finally went back to see when they started, it was when his parents got divorced. And when
Okay.
he understood that and brought that to consciousness, and I believe he went to therapy and saw somebody and worked through that, the dreams stopped. So there's a piece of it that may just be something is unresolved in us and it's trying to get our attention. And a lot of times recurring dreams can be connected to nightmares, because imagine that somebody's pulling on your sleeve. Each one of your recurring dreams is like somebody pulling on your sleeve. At some point, if you're not paying attention, they're going to shake you. And so a recurring dream, if it's not worked with at all, or at least just kind of paid attention to, can turn into a nightmare because it's going to over exaggerate to really get your attention, saying, hey, I need some attention. Something's going on over here, and I need you to look at it.
Interesting. So, when would somebody come work with a dream expert?
Anytime they want, really.
Is it that they're trying to get an answer for something? Is it trying to be more aware of their dreams? What is, I guess, the common theme or
There's a few
reason behind
things.
it, I guess, or is there not
No,
necessarily?
I think there definitely is. People get curious at a certain point in their life. And it seems like it's a lot of the time when people start doing some personal work. I'm on a personal growth, self discovery path, and I'm having dreams and I want to start understanding what are these helping me to understand about myself. So that's a big part of it. Other times I'll get people who just want to work on a single dream. They had a dream that felt like a big dream, and it felt important enough to find somebody to work with them on that particular dream. So you could really use dream work for anything. There's people who use it just for creativity and for kind of innovative, fun, new ideas, to people,
Right.
again, on a personal growth, or people who are trying to incubate specific information.
Interesting, because I when you say about incubate specific information, for some reason it's making me recall a situation in real life, not in a
Okay.
dream, with a friend who had a memory from childhood that basically she had pushed away, right, for her own
Okay.
protection. And we were talking to a astrologer actually, and he
Mhm.
was saying, had this happened between age 7 and 9? And she said, no, no. And then later, when we went back to our hotel, it all came back to her of this memory. And
Yeah.
it was very clear how the brain was working to process this. And I was there witnessing it, which was
Mm,
also interesting to be the observer of all of this.
yeah.
And I feel like this incubation in the dream reminds me of that too, that it's there somewhere, but our brain has put it into little boxes
Mm,
almost.
hmm.
And we need, is it really the permission to access that? Or what is it that we're trying to tell ourselves prior to dreaming if we're wanting to access something
Right.
to
Well, and
let that come out, so to speak.
And that's getting into what I would consider a little bit more of a therapeutic dream work environment where
Mhm.
maybe there is some past trauma or some PTSD and people are wanting to process something that's happened. And so it would be different than the kind of dream work that I do because I'm not a therapist, but
Right.
I'm just so
So what are some examples of what we could pull out of incubation, so to speak?
oh goodness. So gosh, there's so many examples. You might ask, how can I be more healthy? Right. So something super generic. And you might have a dream the next day that shows you only green vegetables. And maybe you ultimately find out, or you do some testing or whatever, that, well, though that's what I'm needing, but the fruits are actually not helping me. And that's why they didn't show up in the dream. And I'm just making something up right
Okay.
now, Elizabeth, just to like an
Okay.
example. It could be something as simple as that. But it could be, well, we'll talk about the body, right? The health issues. Sometimes we'll know something is wrong before anybody else has told us that something is wrong. And I think that women, especially, are highly attuned to their body. We have a
Right.
very deep connection. And so, even if we can't figure out what it is that's wrong, maybe we start incubating a dream and say, hey, can you give me some more information about this? Why am I feeling this way? And maybe you have a dream about body dreams are classically show up in houses and also sometimes cars, but not always. But I do have to say it because you might dream that morning of having maybe there's something clogged in the plumbing in the house in your dream,
Oh, I see. Okay.
right? And you start looking at what is the room for in that dream and try to extract what area of my body could that be representing. And maybe you do a little bit of checking around on that first, or you ask for a follow up dream, something like that. I'll ask for just information even about prior night's dreams. And maybe I'll get just want a little bit more information. I can't quite figure this out. And then I'll get a similar image, but it's placed a little bit differently. So now I can look at this now with a little, with wider eyes and go, oh, I can see how this relates to that. But you could do dream incubation for anything. A list of things that people have incubated in dreams, or even just people who are working to solve a problem, like the DNA structure. Ultimately, after he was working on this for so long, it came to him in a dream. And that made everything come together. Einstein has all these examples of where he received information in a dream that answered the question of what he was working on. So
I've heard it
really
with music, right,
limited.
as well.
Oh yes.
That music has the composition of music has come to people in a dream.
The song Yesterday by Paul McCartney came in a dream. And I know the
Oh,
Rolling
really?
Stones have one.
Oh,
There's a lot of
I love
musicians
that
because they'll
song.
dream that. I know, right?
Well, I feel again through the aspect of people telling me recently these dreams that are not necessarily positive. When someone comes to you and says, "This is my dream," do you just start to dissect? How would that work with somebody who's
Hmm.
coming to you? What does a session look like?
So they would come to me with the dream, and I'll either have them tell me the dream when we're in the session, or I always encourage people to send it to me first so I can just take a look at it and let my own kind of intuitive sense lead me to the kinds of questions that I might want to ask the dreamer. I never just interpret a dream because I really believe that the only person who can ever tell you what a dream means is the dreamer themselves. But I can facilitate an environment to help really open up the dream by asking questions, by diving in deeper into the symbolism around a dream. And if we use just the example from the dreamer that you said right at the beginning of our conversation, right? This woman dreams that her uterus is falling out with the baby in it. Sure, there might be something physically going on with her. So I'll always look at the literal. But I would
Right.
also, in a dream like that, I would really look at the symbolism of that. And I would be very curious if I was talking to that person, how old do you think the baby was? in this dream. And maybe let's just pretend she says 4 months. And I would be asking if there was anything new that has been, any new project, any new thoughts or ideas that have been roughly in her mind for the last 4 months that she's lost all interest in or that didn't come to
Mm,
fruition. So a lot of dream work is about developing symbolic sight where you look at the images as representing something else.
okay.
Really activate the imagination and you look at them in a certain way, almost like artistically. You see in that painting on the wall, and it's going to be different
Right.
than what I see. So you and I will have two different perspectives about that. But then I would go into associations with the symbols. And again, you just start deepening the conversation through a lot of questioning and really helping the dreamer look at pieces through my curiosity about the dream. And generally, there's always going to be a couple of things that come up out of that. That also being said, I think that a dream stays with us, Elizabeth, not just in one. If we have a dream this morning and I work on it and I decide that, yes, I had an idea and I let it go and that was the dream and I put it on the shelf and I don't really deal with the dream anymore,
Right.
that we're also doing a little bit of a disservice. I want to keep the dreams alive, which is why I like people to keep a journal
Hmm.
always, because our dreams are going to be informing us, and we can reread a dream and still get different or additional information as we evolve and as we change. So it
Right.
can change over time, but our dream life is, it's like a parallel life that we're living to our waking life. And just as every single day of our life is, right, we wake up and I have another day, our dream life is very much the same way. So the dreams are part of an ongoing conversation or an ongoing unfolding of who we are. So the more that we're paying attention to the dream time, the more we're able to work with that or that information in the waking time. So it becomes a
Right.
really fun journey because you also never know what you're going to dream.
Right. And I think I've heard before, I'm sure you've heard this too, that the dream state can sometimes take us to other levels, not of either consciousness, but other dimensions, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so if you have a dream that seems not only really lucid, but strange, and you're like, I really felt like I was there somewhere else, I don't have any explanation for that, but I know people have said to me at times, like,
Hmm.
"I think you were just on a different plane, on a different level," type of thing.
Right.
Is that a thing? I don't even know what to say about that.
I think I'm always open to anything as it relates to dreams. And I think that the reality is that science has proven that through the string theory, for example, I believe that they've proven that there are at least 11 different realities somehow happening at the same
Okay.
time. And though I don't understand quantum physics much myself either, I
Right.
absolutely believe that that exists. So
Mhm.
in the dream time, when the ego self has gone to sleep and is no longer the one running the brain, we have unlimited ability to access anything as far as I'm concerned. And this is where people get information in dreams about things they could never possibly know.
Right.
So there is something
Right.
to that for sure.
And the back to the teeth falling out, is that something that is consistent with everybody? So if I have a dream of my teeth falling out and you have a dream of your teeth falling out, does it mean the same thing?
There'll probably be some similarities because
Okay.
if I were to ask you, Elizabeth, let's just say you went to the mirror and you saw your teeth all falling out, what would come up for you? What would be the first thing you would think as you looked in the mirror and that was actually happening, and if it was really happening?
That I'm way overdue to go to the
Yeah,
dentist.
so that could be one of them, though, right? If
Which
something
is
brought
true,
attention
yes.
to. But again, if you look at it symbolically, there's also a possibility that, and I think this is another one of those anxiety dreams, which a lot of the most common dream themes are related to some level of anxiety, not all, but a lot. Our teeth give us the ability to speak and to chew, right? We can't talk right. We can't get our words out if we don't have any teeth. Or I can't digest something if I have no teeth.
Right.
Or maybe it's, am I
That makes
being
sense.
seen and I don't like the way that I'm being seen, or I don't like the way I
Right.
see myself. Maybe some image stuff coming up in a dream like that. So you
Right.
have there's just three possibilities or four possibilities, but then how to get to that is you work with a specific dreamer, find out what's going on in their life and what's been going on usually in the last 24 to 48 hours that might have sparked this kind of a dream. because timing is important in doing your dream work too, which I think is really a benefit. It helps us bring it a little bit more into a better timing to deal with it or understand what it might be speaking to. Because generally, if something happens 24 to 48 hours, it's going to be a little bit related to that dream. So maybe
Okay.
somebody made you feel a certain way, or maybe you didn't speak up to your boss and you really felt like you should have said something, but you didn't, and you held your tongue or something, and you dream of your teeth falling out within 2 days of that. You start understanding your own symbolism and what things mean for you. Because yes, there's going to always be a collective understanding or agreement about certain images. But again, they're so personal, Elizabeth. We all have different associations to different images in life. So
Right.
you get to know yourself better by getting to know your own imagery better.
That makes total sense. And then what I have had happen to me before is dreaming about people from my past, maybe from childhood or even 10 years ago or something, of somebody in my regular conscious day to day I'm not thinking of, but that'll be like so weird. I had a dream about Susie Q last night.
Right.
So what are those signs to reach out to that person for some reason, or was something about, like, how do we make sense of those types of things that
Yeah. Oh,
seemingly are like, oh, that's random, I don't know why I dreamt about that person.
yes. And that's such a good question because everybody has had that happen. So there are times where I will dream about someone from my past and I'll just wake up with a sense that something's not quite right with them. And that's when I'll make a phone call. But I generally won't say, "Oh, I had this bad dream about you."
Right.
I'll just
Right.
check in. "Hey, how you doing?" But sometimes people from the past, again, are going to be our associations to the energy of that person or what set them apart in our life. So let's say that Susie Q was from fifth grade, and I don't know, maybe she could draw the best, and she always won all the awards for best drawing. And I have a dream about her now, right at my
Hmm.
age. If I
Right.
do that 24 to 48-hour look back piece, I might realize that, oh, there was this thing where I felt like I was trying to do something and I couldn't do it as good as everybody else, and it actually, oh, it
Mm.
kind of reminds me of the way that I felt at 5 seeing Susie Q,
Right.
even though I'm me now as an adult. So
Right.
oftentimes you would look for, what are the traits. I would ask somebody, what are the top 3 to 5 traits about that person that you remember, positive and or negative, and then see if
Okay.
those traits relate to anything that's going on in my current reality or anybody that I know, because it's generally not probably going to be the actual person you're dreaming about. But again, trust your intuition. Generally, they're going to be representative of a time when I felt the same now as I felt during some particular event that was probably emotionally charged when I was at the age of whatever the age of that person is in the dream, when I knew
Hmm.
them.
Right. That makes sense. And those are good questions, I think, as a general rule of thumb, if regardless of who you dream about, to ask yourself, you know, I'm also having a question come up about, do you have to be able to be in a certain REM sleep, or is it a certain sleep state in order to get to dream?
Which is another great question. And I think, again, science has proved that in REM sleep is when people have the deepest dreams and the most dreams. But that being said, myself, because I have to include myself, I can start dreaming the second I fall asleep. And I
Wow.
know numerous people like that. And they think it's strange too, but I think we can still dream at all stages of sleep. And probably it's just the deepest or maybe more intense dreaming in the REM sleep, or that's the best time to dream. But I believe
Right.
you can definitely dream at any point in the night.
Because I've also heard people say that the dreaming has had them not sleep well, right? Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
sleep well last night. I was dreaming so much. And to me, that
Mhm.
has never happened. So to me, that it's a hard concept to get my head around. But is
It's
that a
true.
thing as well?
Oh, sure. There are people who definitely had that happen myself. For me, it's happened when I was working on Excel spreadsheets at my corporate job all day long, and I would go to sleep, or I would try to go to sleep, and I could not. My dreams were just constantly doing Excel spreadsheets all night long, and I couldn't sleep. And that happened
Mhm.
more times than I can say. on
Okay.
something work related specifically for me.
Right.
So it definitely can happen. And there's also people, Elizabeth, who dream a lot. And who knows why some of us dream better or more than the others, but I would guess that people who have a very high creative function probably remember at least dreams more, or would be more likely to probably have more dreams.
Gotcha. And then, as far as protecting ourselves of our dreams from what would be good versus bad, so to speak,
Mm.
is there a way to do that other than setting that intention before you go to sleep? Or
And
it
you mean
is,
having a
and
good
is
dream
that not
versus a
even
bad dream?
right?
Well, I always suggest people do a little protection before you go to sleep, anyways, just for good measure, period. It's not a bad thing to do it whether you're asking for a dream or not asking for a dream.
Right.
I think it's hard to sift out between good and bad dreams because it's possible, bad dreams can actually be incredibly useful and helpful. So
Hmm.
we may not want them and we may not like them, but the reality is a lot of times the bad dreams are coming to let us know that something isn't right. And it might be that, hey, you have a job offer on the table and maybe you've had an interview with a couple of the people, and on the surface level you feel okay about it and it's like, oh well, the money's great and it's a great company, but under the surface where you're not really acknowledging how you feel intuitively, you're like, yeah, something's just not right. Everything looks good but it doesn't feel right, and the dream could come as an indication that, look, you need to really revisit this and to hone in and see, how do you really want this job and does it really
Hmm.
feel right. And this gets into instinct and intuition piece of dreaming, but I think the bad dreams can be so healing. And we always say, like, there's always a little bit of a generative quality or a homeopathic dose of something that will help the dreamer in those kinds of dreams. It's in all dreams, but even in the nightmares, there's always something there that can be pulled out that's good to help because it's showing up for a reason.
And you're reminding me too. So then what about children that have bad dreams? Right? They're not going to a corporate job. They
Right.
may not even be in school yet. And some people say that their kids have night terrors. I don't even know what that is. I think it's waking up screaming or something. I'm
Yeah.
fortunate, knock on wood, that my kids didn't have those. But how do we make sense of children waking up with bad dreams and screaming and things like that?
And that's a great question. And I know that that's probably moving more into, probably a therapist could answer that better. But that being said, children go through a whole period of dreaming because they're so little and they're growing. Everything's bigger than them. So everything is more monstrous, everything is more threatening. So I think it's probably normal for children to have some bad dreams because they're developing and they're going to have fears and they're going to have anxieties even though they can't speak to them or they don't know how to express themselves. So I think as a parent, the best thing is to never just say, oh, don't worry about it, it was a dream. Just, hey, let me just give you a hug. Let's just take a few deep breaths. And I think it's important not to diminish a dream, but you also don't want your child dreaming still of monsters and having nightmares. So an interesting thing that could be helpful is, it's called the Sonoy tribe in Malaysia. And they used to have dream circles as a culture. And so in the morning, they'd all get together and talk about their dreams, and their dreams would lead the community. That's
Oh,
how much
wow.
they believed in the dream time. And
Right.
so when children would have a nightmare, they were taught by the rest of the tribe. And this takes some practice for sure, Elizabeth, but they were taught by the tribe. So teach yourself in the dream to turn around and face the monstrous image, whatever that is. And so once you're conscious that you can do that, eventually you can do that. And what would happen is the children would eventually, in a dream, turn around and face the monster and ask them what they want. That's what they told the children to ask them, what do you want? And so often or the monstrous figure would just say, well, I just want you to love me, or I just want you to hug me, or I just want you to know that I'm here. And what would happen is it would diffuse this terror behind a monster, and the monster then became an ally in the child's life that they could, in their imagination, walk with in their daily life. This became their
Right.
ally. This became their friend. I know there was a fabulous children's book written about that. And I wish I could remember the name of it right now, but There's a book about child and the monster in his dreams and how
Mhm.
they befriended each other.
Mhm.
So
Well, when you say they want a hug or they want whatever, it seems similar to life, right? We all want to be accepted. We all want to be loved. We all want, so what is it in our life that we need to give more love to and
yeah,
be in that state of love rather than fear in some way. So, well, I
absolutely.
could ask you a million questions all day long, but how can people find you to work with you, Bambi?
So my website is just my pre-married name, so it's bambicorso.com.
Okay.
And so I have contact page there. I'm also on Facebook under DreamTracking. I'm on Instagram also under the name DreamTracking. I use that as one word. My book is there too, but sold on Amazon. So there's lots of ways of getting in touch with me.
Wonderful. And we will link that free information that
Mm,
you mentioned earlier for people in the notes for this
okay.
podcast as well, so people can start to get in on it on their own as well. So thank you
Yes.
so much for your time
Thank
today
you so much.
and
Such a
giving us
pleasure.
fun conversation around dreams. I will certainly be looking at them in a different way myself. So
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a beautiful day.
thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.